growler. That's the word, growler.
So did you pick up your mess at 1 o'clock, or are you going to work on it this morning?
No, I picked up my mess 2 minutes ago. I'll probably, well,
not a fun way to try then to go back to sleep.
yeah, I thought it might have been part of the dream. I just bam, woke up. And like, hope Diego's okay. Yeah. I'll probably go down there and mop at some point.
Good morning.
Then I will not read the second time because mine is NIV as well.
Amen. And the NAS says, concerning him, we have much to say, and it's hard to explain since you've become dull of hearing. For though by this time you ought to be teachers, you have need again for someone to teach you the elementary principles of the oracles of God, and you have come to need milk and not solid food. For everyone who partakes only of milk is not accustomed to the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. But solid food is for the mature, who because of practice have their senses trained to discern good and evil.
Yeah, sure. About this, I have much to say, and it is hard to explain, since you have become dull of hearing. For though by this time you ought to be teachers, you need someone to teach you again the basic principles of the oracles of God. You need milk, not solid food, for everyone who lives on milk is unskilled in the word of righteousness, since he is a child. But solid food is for the mature, for those who have their powers of discernment trained by constant practice to distinguish good from evil. My nose.
I guess you'd classify those 4 verses as corrective criticism. Kind of gets in their face.
Right. Feel
Mhm.
hmm. I feel like this entire book has been me living like this, or me hearing it like this, because this entire book has kind of been over my head most of the time.
No, I feel like these few lines, he's just kind of like scolding, like he's like being, I don't know who he's talking to because I missed last few days, but it seems like he's kind of being a little harsh over the top.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Does anybody's version in there say in your face?
No, the NDH version will.
Well, mine says for solid food is for the mature who, because of practice, have their senses trained.
Mine says for those who have their powers. Yeah. Me? Yeah. But solid food is for the mature, for those who have their powers of discernment trained by constant practice to distinguish good from evil.
Yeah, I read this as um, being in the word. You know, back in those days, everything was a small group because the churches were so small. But staying away from the idols, staying away from the old God, staying away from that kind of thing, and focusing on the teachings that they had already heard from and about Christ or from the disciples, just focusing on the positive of Christianity. That's my take on
Basic principles.
it. Mhm.
Morning. Yeah.
Yeah, because he says in the middle of 12, you have need again for someone to teach you. So they've heard and learned the message of Christ's salvation, but sounds like they've significantly regressed. And it makes you wonder if they're even teaching some of the stuff that makes them accused of being falling away.
I know this might sound childish or kind of weird, but do you think if it wasn't for the circumcision, they probably wouldn't have backed off as hard? Like, do you think that low key kind of made them nervous? Because I mean, back then, I feel like that was just kind of like very far out there. It's not like you're giving the belief like back then to some people. I mean, that was a pretty big deal, I feel like, to essentially take off a part of your body, so to speak. I said, do you think they would have like been as tempted to convert back if it wasn't like if that circumcision part wasn't involved or like included in it? Like, do you think that was the main reason why they were scared? Like, just because of that, or was there other reasons? And this could be a dumb question. I haven't read this far in the Bible, but I've heard little things on stuff like that. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with circumcision. I just feel like back then I could see how that could be a pretty kind of scary thing for a lot of people. Yeah,
Mhm.
especially because I feel like it's one thing to do as a child because you don't know, but let alone as an adult.
Well, we know this was written to the Hebrews, but do we know where it was given? I mean, was it a letter to Rome? Was it a letter to Greece? Is there any idea of where specifically the letter was delivered?
Can't. Yeah.
Yeah, because we don't know the author either. It's not logical that we would know where, but I just thought I'd ask.
And that was kind of my whole wonder and thought. Like, even if they had the belief, I feel like some people are kind of quick to push over when it means that they have to sacrifice something of their own. And I feel like that's not just them sacrificing like a little bit of money or something like that. Some people, that's more than anything.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you go back to the Gospels and they quote Christ, and Christ says, to get to the Father, all you got to do is believe in me and acknowledge. Boom, end of sentence.
Yeah.
But these guys are starting to make more rules, which is the old way of doing things. All of a sudden, you end up with 500 rules. You can't do this, you can't do this, or we'll stone you.
Right.
I think they're trying to slap that down in a hurry to say it's a gift. It's all you have to do. It's a gift.
But in this specific passage, I think it's maybe a little more. They're trying to drill deeper and say, look, it's way more complicated than you're making it in some aspects. And it's not so complicated in a lot of aspects. It is not just, here's a set of rules, follow them. It has to do with the position of your heart and all the other things. And I don't remember. I can't come up with any of the other things off the top of my head, but
Keep drinking coffee. It'll come to you.
I will. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, you have come to need milk and not solid food. And that's what they're doing. They're going back to the very basics.
That's a good way of thinking about it. It's like you have overcomplicated it. It is simple at a certain level. Let's go back to where it's simple and you can understand it. And then start over. Gradually work yourself up to apologetic level, an apologist's level of understanding. Which I will say, a lot of modern apologists, I don't think really have it together either.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion is they tend to overcomplicate it just for the sake of having the ability to come up with a lot of words. Just so that they can have a platform and keep it. But
You know, what just popped into my mind, are you familiar with the Romans road that you lead people to salvation, it could be something like that. There are, what, 6 verses that you flip through Romans and have people read. That's the basics. That's it. That's salvation. Keep it there. If you agree, if your heart is open, if your mind says yes, boom, you're saved. And it could be going back to something as simple as that type of a concept. Yeah. Everything else you've loaded on yourself, you don't need all that. Mhm.
Yeah.
I think about it more. Hmm. Amen.
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 You guys have a very good day. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
Yes.
Two.